This is Rosie Haneke from the UIC Library, and in this video I'll give some tips and general guidance for doing an annotated bibliography in the field of public health. An annotated bibliography is a way to both organize and analyze the literature that you find in a literature review. An annotated bibliography is a list of entries. Each entry is made up of a citation or reference as well as an annotation. The annotated bibliography altogether is a quick snapshot of the sources that you've already found on a relatively narrow topic with some added comments and critique of your own. So the annotation itself will usually include content that is summary as well as review critique and how that source fits in with your overall topic. The annotated bibliography is both a way to inform yourself on a topic and organize the literature so you can come back to your notes later, as well as perhaps to inform your reader. So depending on your project and your assignment, an annotated bibliography might be your finished product, or it might be a midway step towards writing a full literature review. Either way, an annotated bibliography can be seen as a summary of the scholarly conversation that's already taking place around your topic, and that this summary in an annotated bibliography is divided up, each reference separately. Looking at the multiple stages of a literature review, an annotated bibliography comprises the first 3 steps. So it will take you from selecting and refining your topic, or perhaps that's been assigned to you, through gathering your sources, reading them, and evaluating them. The final step, synthesizing information, is what's done in a literature review publication that's known as a narrative review. So that would be synthesizing and connecting all the readings into one narrative essay, whereas with an annotated bibliography, each entry is separate. There are several different types of information out there. Scholarly peer-reviewed articles, gray literature, which would be things like research reports and government documents, books, and popular sources such as magazines, newspapers, radio transcripts, and things like that. Depending on what type of information you're looking for, you might need to look in a different place for those sources. So it's important to make sure you're looking in the right place. When you're doing a scholarly literature review, the bulk, if not the whole of your literature review is going to be made of scholarly or peer-reviewed articles. So you want that to be the focus of the content of your annotated bibliography. There's a lot of information out there, so let's talk about how do you know if you're finding the right information. First, as I just said, think critically about what type of information you need. So, do I want scholarly journal articles? Mostly, yes, that's what you're going to be using. Think about who's working on this problem, who's doing the research on this topic. So for that reason, you're going to be looking for primary research articles as opposed to secondary or tertiary research articles. And I would refer you to the separate video on literature reviews if you'd like a more in-depth discussion of primary versus secondary research. Just know that when you're doing an annotated bibliography, generally speaking, you want to look for primary research studies so that you're engaging with the original data, the original research on this topic, rather than doing a summary of someone else's summary of the research. Ask yourself where you can find information that is reliable, in-depth, that is detailed, and written by subject experts. So this last point here is important because I would say this is what you want to ask yourself. And this is the type of information that you might not find if you're just doing general Google or internet searches. If you find an article on your topic that's from NPR, for example, or the New York Times, will it be reliable? Quite likely, yes. But will it be in-depth, detailed information written by experts in public health? Likely not. It is most likely going to be written by someone who's an expert in journalism or an expert in writing, or something like that. So you want to look for information that's written by scholars and experts in the field of public health. And that's why we're looking at the scholarly literature. To go straight to the quote-unquote right type of sources, or the scholarly literature, I would urge you to start with library databases. These sources have been through some vetting, which is to say that the journals that you have found in library databases, you still need to look at them with a critical eye and do your own evaluation. But you're starting with a subset of everything that's out there. So it's a more efficient way to get to the right type of source rather than searching all of Google. On a practical level, starting with the library databases will connect you to the UIC journal subscriptions. And you can use that Find It at UIC button to look for full text and request articles easily through interlibrary loan if need be. Another pointer for making sure you've got the right articles or the best articles on your topic is to be specific with search terms, and I'll refer you back to that other recording on literature reviews if you want guidance on this. And again, you're always welcome to schedule an appointment with me or another librarian if you'd like help narrowing down search terms on your topic. As you're doing a literature review or annotated bibliography, I would encourage you to use a citation manager like Zotero or RefWorks. If you're doing a group project, you can share your RefWorks or Zotero folders with your group members, and you can plug it into your browser so you can just click and save items as you go. But if you don't use a citation manager, you still need to do something to keep track of your process of finding literature. So that can just be opening up a blank document to take notes, or do something to organize your findings. After you find information for your annotated bibliography, you need to evaluate it. And this is important because remember, for an annotated bibliography, you're not just summarizing an article and saying this is what they said in the article, you're also evaluating it and providing your own analysis of that source. So these are questions you can ask to look at each article with a critical eye. So what's the authority of the author of this content? What are their credentials? And again, are they experts in public health, epidemiology, environmental health, something related, social work, psychology, medicine, or is their expertise in journalism or media? What are their biases? So we are all biased in one way or another. What are the biases of the author of this article? So this is also important if you're just doing general Google searches. You're going to find a lot of commercial sites that, if not ads, are creating content for the express purpose of selling something. So again, another good reason to start with the scholarly literature. Is the information accurate? Are their sources documented and well referenced? And how old is the document? Something being on the older side doesn't necessarily rule it out as a good source. You would just want to ask yourself if there is more current research that could possibly lead you to different conclusions. So these are just some of the factors that you might want to think about when you're evaluating a source. You want to use high quality peer-reviewed scholarly journals in your annotated bibliography. We have a page, a research guide, if you want to pause the video here and copy this URL. This is a UIC research guide on selecting journals and how to evaluate a quality journal. It's written from the perspective of authors who are looking for journals to publish their own papers, but I think that the guidelines on this page are helpful regardless. Some basic questions to ask yourself: is the journal peer-reviewed? Does it go through that scholarly peer review process? What are its policies and practices regarding anything commercial? So who can access the information found in the journal? How do they make their money? Do they charge author fees? How do they handle conflicts of interest? And where is the journal indexed? Is it found in scholarly databases like the ones we have through the library, like PubMed, like Web of Science, etc.? And of course, you can always ask a librarian if you have doubts about the quality of a particular journal and you'd like help ascertaining that. Let's talk about a few things that are good to keep in mind when you're doing an annotated bibliography. As I've already said, don't just summarize the article. Your instructors don't want to see you just put the abstract in your own words. Use your critical thinking skills to provide a thoughtful analysis of the article as well. Lay the groundwork for future synthesis, that is, putting it all together, by connecting each source to the overall issue. What are the connections? Provide context for your reader. Remember that not every source that you include in the annotated bibliography will be exactly the same. They won't all ask the same research questions or investigate them in the same way. So you want to provide those connections and sort of connect the dots for your reader. Here are a few questions you can ask yourself to help with providing that context. Think about how this article is similar to or different from other articles written on the same topic. What makes it different? What does it bring to your annotated bibliography that your other sources don't? This could be investigating a question within a particular setting or population, using a methodology that you haven't found elsewhere in the literature. Maybe they've come to different conclusions than other articles have, or maybe they're investigating a question in the context of a particular conceptual or theoretical framework. Think about what connections you can make between this article and other perspectives on the topic. Here are a few examples of language that you can use to describe that context and those connections concisely, but in a scholarly tone. These are just made-up examples, but hopefully will give you a good idea of the kind of language you might use. The author's findings demonstrate that it's critical to consider racial disparities when discussing risk factors for heart disease. This study fills a critical gap in the existing research by addressing the issue in the context of federally qualified health centers. And finally, during the Ebola pandemic of 2014, the authors demonstrated the effectiveness of family-based interventions. Applying their findings to the context of the COVID-19 pandemic helps us to address similar challenges. This last example highlights the fact that the articles that you find might not exactly match your research question, but if you can still demonstrate to your reader how the information applies to your particular research question, you can still include it. An annotated bibliography entry must follow proper format, in this case APA format. If you'd like help with APA, you can look on the library website, click on Get Help with Writing Style and Citations to find our library research guide on APA style. You can also look at the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or OWL. You can use the library chat service to ask basic questions about APA format, and they'll refer you to resources on the topic. If you use a citation manager like RefWorks, Mendeley, or Zotero, these will generate references for you in any style you like. I put here it's approximate APA style because there are nearly always some type of errors included in these automatically generated references. So if you want to use something like RefWorks to generate your citations and save yourself time just in terms of getting all the elements in the right order, that's fine, but just remember that you need to go back over them with a fine-tooth comb and correct any errors, especially in things like capitalization, punctuation, because those errors do happen pretty often. Here's my information. Please contact me directly if you'd like to make an appointment, or you can use any of the contact us methods that you can find on the library website.